Ladies, gentlemen, when you start something, when you dare to dream, to write a plan, to set a goal, understand this. You've already made a promise to yourself, and that promise deserves to be kept. Because in a world full of people who quit, the one who finishes becomes unforgettable. You see, everybody gets excited at the beginning. Everybody loves the start. That's when the energy is high, the motivation is fresh, and the vision is clear. But it's not about how you start. It's always been about how you finish. The secret power lies in finishing what you said you were going to do, even when it no longer feels good, even when it's no longer convenient, even when it hurts. You're not always going to feel inspired. You're not always going to feel ready, but your feelings were never supposed to lead the mission. Your commitment was, because once you set a goal, once you told yourself, I'm going to make this happen, you declared war against mediocrity, against excuses, against the part of you that's always looking for a way out. Success doesn't come to those who wish, it comes to those who work. It comes to those who show up day after day in silence, without applause, without validation, and still push forward. You don't get trophies for intentions, you get them for execution. Finishing is what turns ordinary into legendary. Most people stop when it gets uncomfortable. Most people quit at the sight of resistance, but not you. You weren't built to break. You weren't born to settle. You were made to conquer. And every time you finish what you start, you take back control of your life. You become stronger. You build discipline. You grow unshakable confidence because you prove to yourself you can be trusted. This world is full of distractions, full of easy ways out, full of tempting shortcuts. But nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever replace the pride that comes from finishing. When you finish, you win. When you finish, you rise. When you finish, you make a statement, not to the world, but to yourself, that you are not average. You are not common, you are chosen, you are focused, and you are dangerous. So the next time your mind whispers, let's stop, you look it in the face and say, we don't stop, we finish. Because finishers don't just change their lives, they change the world. Starting is always the easy part. That's when the energy is high, the vision is fresh, and the excitement of possibility is at its peak. The beginning feels powerful because everything is still in your control, untouched by the pressures, the obstacles, and the delays that are sure to come. It's easy to dream, easy to plan, easy to talk about what you're going to do. That's why so many people stay at the starting line. They enjoy the hype of intention, but never walk through the fire of execution. But what truly separates winners from the rest of the world isn't how well they begin, it's how well they endure, how committed they stay, and how relentlessly they push until the job is done. Because the truth is, anyone can start a goal, but very few are willing to finish. The beginning doesn't demand character. It demands imagination, but finishing, that demands discipline, sacrifice, mental toughness, and a fire that doesn't burn out when the weather changes. Everyone claps when you announce a new goal. You post about it, you talk about it, you make promises to the world, and people love that. But when months pass and the hype fades, you're left with nothing but your own work ethic. The real journey begins when the noise disappears. That's when the late nights, early mornings, and lonely days start to test your spirit. That's when you find out if you're serious or just playing. Starting is a moment, but finishing is a mindset. It's not a burst of motivation. It's a series of decisions you make over and over again. When it's boring, when it's inconvenient, when no one's watching, when progress feels slow, you can't rely on inspiration to finish. You have to rely on character. You have to remember why you started and then dig even deeper when things get hard. Because things will get hard. That's a guarantee. You'll face distractions, setbacks, and voices, both internal and external, telling you it's okay to quit. But it's not okay, not if you want to live a life that means something, not if you want to look in the mirror and know you gave it everything. There's a reason so many people never reach the finish line. It's not because they weren't smart enough. It's not because they didn't have the resources or the right connections. It's because they lacked the grit to keep going when it no longer felt good. Because goals don't care how you feel. They only respond to what you do. You have to learn how to keep showing up when no one is clapping, when the results are slow, when you feel like giving up. That's where the power is, that's where the growth is, and that's what makes you different. Every unfinished goal leaves a scar on your confidence. It's a quiet reminder in the back of your mind that you didn't follow through. Over time, that begins to affect how you see yourself. But every time you finish, no matter how small the task, you build a layer of strength. You tell your mind, I do what I say I'll do. That's power, that's self-respect, and that's something nobody can give you. You earn it by doing the hard things, by finishing even when it hurts. The world doesn't remember people for their ideas. It remembers people for their results. You don't get to write your legacy in intention. You write it in execution. You don't earn respect for talking about greatness. You earn it by delivering. Finishing your goals isn't just about productivity. It's about becoming the kind of person who refuses to stop short of the promise. It's about integrity, about honoring your word, not to others, but to yourself. And when you become a finisher, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you become stronger. So yes, starting is easy. Everyone can do that. But finishing, that's rare. That's powerful. That's where your greatness lies. Feelings are unpredictable. They rise and fall like waves, sometimes carrying you with energy and excitement, and other times pulling you into hesitation, doubt, and laziness. This is why relying on feelings to lead your life, your goals, or your discipline is dangerous. Because on the days when motivation is absent, and those days will come, you will feel like quitting. You'll feel like skipping the workout, postponing the project, or giving yourself a break from the effort. But the truth is, greatness is never built on how you feel. It's built on the decisions you make when feelings tell you to stop. Commitment, on the other hand, doesn't waver. It's not based on your mood or the weather. It's not influenced by how many likes you get or how smooth the path feels. Commitment is a decision that stands tall even when everything else around it collapses. It's the quiet voice in your head that says, I'm going to do this, and then follows through regardless of excitement, convenience, or recognition. And this is what separates the average from the elite. The average move when they feel inspired. The elite move because they made a promise. They do it tired. They do it frustrated. They do it uncertain, but they do it. There's a reason why so many people set goals and then abandon them. It's not because they aren't capable. It's not because they don't have the talent. It's because their feelings ran the show. They felt excited in the beginning, but the moment that feeling faded, so did their effort. They allowed emotion to become the compass, and the compass lied. Feelings are emotional weather, always shifting, always temporary. Commitment is the anchor. It holds you steady. It pulls you through storms. It reminds you of your why when your how feels impossible. When you operate from commitment, you take control back from your emotions. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect mindset. Instead, you do the work because it needs to be done. You build momentum by showing up, and each time you honor that commitment, especially when it's hard, you strengthen your identity. You stop being someone who hopes to be disciplined, and you become someone who is disciplined. You become someone who can be counted on. That self-trust is what builds real confidence. Not pep talks, not hype, but consistent action in the absence of comfort. There's something powerful about waking up and doing what needs to be done when every part of you says, not today. That's when character is formed. That's when mental strength is forged. People look at successful individuals and think they must always feel motivated. But that's not the case. In fact, many of them have mastered the skill of acting without motivation. They've learned to shut out their emotions when it comes to execution. They respect their commitments more than their moods. They don't ask themselves, do I feel like it? They ask, what did I commit to? And then they move. This mindset creates freedom. It may sound like discipline is restricting, but it's the opposite. When you live by commitment rather than emotion, you gain control over your time, your habits, your future. You stop getting thrown off track by every bad day. You stop restarting over and over again. You begin to make real progress because you're no longer controlled by fleeting feelings. You become dependable, not just to others, but to yourself. And that's one of the most powerful things a person can become. There will always be days when you don't feel like it, days when you're tired, discouraged, or distracted. But if you can learn to act in those moments, not perfectly, but intentionally, you gain an edge most people never find. Because most people wait. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel inspired. They wait for the fire to come back. But you don't wait. You remember the promise. You remember the reason, and you move anyway. That's how you build something real. That's how you win. Not by following your feelings, but by following through. Every time you finish something you said you would do, no matter how small or simple it seems, you build a deeper, stronger trust in yourself. This isn't just about checking a task off a list. It's about shaping the way you see yourself. Finishing your goals isn't just about achievement, it's about identity. When you follow through on your commitments, you are telling yourself, I am someone who shows up. I am someone who can be trusted. That message doesn't just stay in your head. It becomes part of your character. Confidence isn't built from compliments. It's not built from external praise or validation. Confidence is a quiet strength that grows from doing what you say you're going to do. Every time you say, I'll do this, and then you do it, you're creating a pattern in your brain, a pattern that says your word matters, your time matters, your goals matter. Over time, that pattern becomes a belief. And that belief becomes unshakable confidence. You don't have to fake it. You don't have to talk big. You don't have to convince anyone. You'll know it's real because it came from work. It came from discipline. It came from finishing. Now think about the opposite. Every time you break a promise to yourself, every time you quit early, delay the work, or walk away from something you were supposed to finish, you weaken that trust. It may not feel dramatic at the moment, but it slowly chips away at how much you believe in yourself. You begin to doubt your ability to follow through. You start second, guessing your strength, and worst of all, you start to lower your standards. You become okay with being almost. You accept close enough. You convince yourself that it's fine to live below your potential because at least you tried, but almost doesn't build trust. Almost doesn't build belief. Finishing does. You might not realize it, but every decision you make is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. When you choose to push through discomfort and finish the work, you cast a vote for the person who is strong, focused, and unstoppable. When you choose to walk away halfway, you cast a vote for the person who runs when things get hard. The power of this truth is that no one else gets to cast those votes for you. You get to decide who you are becoming, one action at a time. There's a certain peace that comes from finishing, even if no one sees it, even if no one applauds it, even if it doesn't bring immediate rewards. It gives you something priceless, self-respect. You can look in the mirror and say, I did it, I stayed with it, I kept my word. That kind of self-respect can't be bought, borrowed, or gifted. It has to be earned through effort, through repetition, through the hard, boring, unglamorous moments where most people would quit. But you keep going. That's why finishing matters so much more than we often realize. It's not just about the task, it's about the message you send to your own mind. If you finish once, you prove it's possible. If you finish twice, you start to believe it. If you finish consistently, it becomes who you are. You become the type of person who finishes what they start. That identity is powerful, and it carries into every area of your life. From fitness to career, from relationships to personal growth. Once you learn to finish in one area, it becomes easier to carry that mindset everywhere. The more you finish, the more evidence you build. And the more evidence you have, the stronger your confidence becomes. This isn't just motivational talk, it's science. Your brain takes note of every win and every loss. Every time you prove yourself right, your belief system strengthens. You begin to expect greatness from yourself, not because you're arrogant, but because you've earned it. You've built it. You've done the hard things, and you have the proof. And that's the beauty of finishing. It's not about talent. It's not about luck. It's about effort, consistency, and integrity. It's about doing what needs to be done, even when no one's looking. And each time you do, you don't just get closer to your goal. You get closer to your best self. Ideas are powerful, but they are not enough. Dreams are inspiring, but they won't move your life forward unless you turn them into consistent action. Intention without execution is just a wish. Too many people live stuck in the space between what they want and what they're willing to work for. They talk about what they're going to do, they plan, prepare, and visualize, but when it's time to show up, to take the first step, to push through discomfort, they hesitate, they stall, and the result is always the same: nothing happens. Nothing changes, because success does not come from what you plan, it comes from what you do. It's easy to fall in love with the idea of success. It feels good to dream big. It feels powerful to talk about goals and make vision boards. But none of that matters without execution. Execution is the force that turns dreams into reality. It's the bridge between thinking and becoming. Everyone has ideas. Everyone has potential. But only a few people make the decision to move consistently and deliberately toward their goals, no matter how difficult it gets. That decision is what sets them apart. That decision is what brings results. The gap between who you are and who you want to be is closed by what you do daily. Not once in a while, not when you feel good, but every single day. The world doesn't reward ideas, it rewards results. And results don't come from waiting for the perfect time or the perfect plan. They come from doing the work. Even messy, imperfect action is more powerful than waiting for everything to align. Action builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds consistency. And consistency leads to transformation. Execution isn't always exciting. It's often repetitive, uncomfortable, and demanding. That's why most people avoid it. They'd rather stay in the safe space of thinking, planning, and hoping. They wait for motivation to magically carry them through the hard parts. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. The people who succeed are the ones who show up without it. They don't need a perfect mood or a perfect environment. They've trained themselves to follow through, to keep going, to keep executing, especially when they don't feel like it. Those who only rely on motivation will always be at the mercy of their emotions. One bad day can throw them off course. One distraction can erase their progress. But those who build the habit of execution, they become unstoppable. They develop a mindset that says, I don't stop when I'm tired. I stop when I'm done. That kind of mindset doesn't happen by accident. It happens by practice. It happens when you repeatedly choose to act instead of wait. To move instead of doubt, to finish instead of excuse. No one is born with discipline. No one is naturally consistent. These are skills you develop by doing the hard thing over and over again. Every time you choose execution over excuse, you train your mind to be stronger. You stop being a slave to your feelings and start becoming a master of your focus. You stop waiting for change and start creating it. Action becomes your identity. Progress becomes your habit, and before long, you're no longer talking about your goals. You're living them. Think about how many people you know who say, I want to do this, or I'm going to start that, but they never follow through. They always have a reason, a story, or an excuse. They live in the future, always planning, never arriving. That's not who you want to be. You don't want to be the person with potential. You want to be the person with proof. Proof that you showed up, proof that you finished, proof that you were willing to do what most people won't. Because success doesn't care about your plans, it doesn't care about your excuses, it doesn't care how hard your journey is, it only responds to one thing, execution, and when you make that your standard, when doing the work becomes non-negotiable, you change everything. You don't just achieve your goals, you evolve, you become more focused, more disciplined, more powerful. You stop needing motivation because you've built momentum, and momentum is what makes dreams real. Not hope, not talk, not intention, only execution. Discomfort is the price of growth. It's the doorway you must pass through if you want to rise above average and become something greater. Most people want success, but they don't want the discomfort that comes with earning it. They crave the rewards but avoid the struggle. But the truth is, struggle is not the enemy, it's the process. Discomfort is not a sign to quit. It's a signal that you are moving in the right direction. Every goal worth chasing will challenge you. It will test your patience, your discipline, your endurance, and your hunger. And if you're not willing to be uncomfortable, you'll never access the power and potential inside you. The moment something feels hard, most people retreat. They tell themselves it's not the right time, not the right path, or not meant to be. But discomfort doesn't mean something is wrong. In fact, it often means you're finally doing something right. You're stepping outside of the comfort zone where nothing ever changes, because comfort doesn't build strength. Comfort never built a champion, never created a legacy, never transformed a life. Everything you truly want, everything that matters, lives beyond what feels easy. When you push through discomfort, you teach yourself resilience. You learn how to stay calm under pressure. You discover that your limits were never real. They were just mental walls you hadn't dared to break. And the more you lean into that pain, that pressure, that resistance, the more powerful you become. Not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You stop being controlled by fear. You stop backing down when things get hard. You begin to realize that the pain of discipline is temporary, but the pain of regret lasts forever. Every time you quit because something feels hard, you reinforce weakness. You give your mind permission to retreat. You train yourself to walk away from growth. And the more you do that, the more you become a prisoner of your own comfort. But when you keep going, even when everything in you says stop, you begin to rewrite your story. You build a new version of yourself, one that doesn't break under pressure, one that doesn't fear the storm, one that welcomes challenge as the very fuel of transformation. Discomfort creates separation. It's the line that divides the dreamers from the doers, the wishers from the warriors. Most people will stop the moment it hurts. They'll stop when it's no longer exciting, when the path gets quiet and lonely. But the few who keep going, those are the ones who rise. Those are the ones who win, because they understand that pain is part of the process. They understand that adversity is the cost of greatness. They don't run from the hard parts. They run toward them. The path to your goals will not be a straight, smooth road. It will be full of days when you feel tired, distracted, discouraged. There will be setbacks, failures, and moments when quitting feels like the easier option. And in those moments, you'll be tempted to believe that discomfort means you're doing something wrong, but it doesn't. It means you're alive. It means you're growing. It means you're stretching your mind, your body, and your spirit into territory most people never explore. Think about the gym. If you never feel your muscles burn, you're not getting stronger. If you don't push beyond what's easy, your body stays the same. It's the same with life. Discomfort is the resistance that creates resilience. You don't grow by doing what you've always done. You grow by daring to be uncomfortable long enough to break through. And the more often you sit in that discomfort without running away from it, the more powerful you become. You stop flinching when challenges arise. You stop avoiding situations that stretch you. You start to lean into them. Because you've learned that discomfort is not the enemy, it's your training ground. It's your teacher. It's the furnace that forges unshakable strength. The ones who make it to the top are not always the smartest or most talented. They are the ones who refuse to let pain push them out. They are the ones who stayed committed even when the work was hard, the path was long, and the results were slow. They understood that greatness lives on the other side of discomfort. And every time they felt it, they didn't stop. They leaned in, pushed harder, and rose higher. Most people want to win, but very few are willing to suffer. Very few are willing to endure the grind, the rejection, the setbacks, and the silence. It's not talent that separates the great from the average. It's the willingness to go through pain without applause, to keep showing up when no one is watching, to keep believing when results are nowhere in sight. This is the true test of character. It's easy to be disciplined when you're being celebrated. It's easy to stay committed when you're getting recognition, praise, or quick wins, but the real power lies in staying the course when there's nothing but quiet, no cheers, no validation, no immediate reward. Just you and your effort, just you and the work. There will be days where it feels like no one sees you, no one cares about your grind. You'll question why you even started. You'll wonder if it's worth it. And in those moments, the average quit. They stopped trying because the applause they were addicted to went silent. But the uncommon, the relentless, they understand that greatness is forged in isolation. They know that the seeds planted in private bloom in public. They don't need the crowd, they don't need the claps, because their hunger is internal. Their drive comes from something deeper than attention. It comes from purpose. When you're grinding day after day with no results to show, that's when your belief is truly tested. That's when your why has to be stronger than your feelings. You have to be willing to sacrifice the comfort of recognition for the power of transformation. The people who win are those who choose progress over praise. They understand that silence is part of the process. Silence isn't a sign to stop, it's a sign that you're working in the shadows, building something real. This journey requires mental toughness. It requires an unshakable focus on the goal, even when your current situation doesn't reflect it. You have to wake up and push forward like the victory is already yours, even when you're still stuck in the middle of the fight. You have to move like it's already written, even when your reality looks like failure. That kind of mindset doesn't come from comfort. It comes from choosing to show up every single day, whether the world notices or not. The truth is, success is often lonely. You'll lose friends who don't understand your obsession. You'll miss out on parties, weekends, and downtime. You'll trade temporary fun for long-term gain, but every sacrifice will shape you. Every quiet hour you put into your craft, every unnoticed repetition, every ignored win, it's all building something stronger than fame. It's building mastery, and mastery doesn't need attention. It demands discipline. It demands obsession. It demands that you fall in love with the process, not the praise. You have to be okay with not being seen right now, because in the dark is where the foundation is laid. In the quiet is where the muscle is built. In the absence of noise is where clarity forms, and eventually your results will speak so loud that the world will have no choice but to notice. But that day only comes if you survive the silence, if you keep pushing when motivation disappears, if you keep grinding when nobody cares, because that's where 99% of people fall off. That's where the winners separate themselves, not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Stop waiting for recognition to validate your efforts. You don't need anyone to approve your path. You don't need anyone to understand your hustle. If you're doing the work, the results will come. Not instantly, not conveniently, but inevitably. You just have to keep showing up. Keep doing the reps. Keep chasing excellence for yourself, not for the applause, because if your motivation dies in the absence of attention, then you were never truly committed. You were addicted to validation, not to growth. Stay low, stay focused, stay disciplined. There is power in working in silence, because one day the silence will break. And when it does, your results will be so undeniable, they won't need an introduction. They'll speak for you, but none of that happens if you give up when no one is watching. This is the season to build, to suffer, to grind, and to trust that even when no one claps, the work is still working. Finishing your goals doesn't just bring a sense of personal pride. It creates a ripple effect that touches every area of your life. When you develop the discipline to complete what you start, it becomes more than a skill. It becomes a standard. It becomes a foundation on which everything else stands. The person who finishes consistently becomes reliable, dependable, focused, not just in one area, but in all areas. Whether it's your job, your relationships, your health, or your dreams, everything begins to improve because you've trained yourself to follow through. Most people compartmentalize their effort. They give energy to one part of life while letting the rest suffer. They chase career goals while ignoring health. They focus on personal development but neglect discipline. But the truth is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. If you get comfortable quitting in one part of your life, that habit follows you into other parts. If you're inconsistent with your goals, that inconsistency bleeds into your confidence, your integrity, and your sense of self-worth. But the opposite is also true. When you commit to finishing, when you build the identity of someone who sees things through, that mindset spreads. It elevates everything. You start with something small. Maybe it's waking up early, sticking to a workout plan, or finishing a book you started, and then something changes. You begin to see yourself differently. You begin to think, if I can do this, maybe I can do more. And that belief starts spilling into the way you approach work, into how you communicate, into how you treat your time and energy. You become more intentional, more focused, more precise, because you've proven to yourself that you don't need external pressure to stay committed. You don't need a boss, a deadline, or an audience to keep you going. You've become self-driven. And that's powerful. When you finish what you start, you eliminate mental clutter. You stop carrying the weight of unfinished projects, incomplete ideas, and broken promises. That mental burden slows people down more than they realize. It creates anxiety, guilt, and constant distraction. But when you complete your goals, even the small ones, you free up that mental energy. You create clarity. You make room for better focus, sharper decision making, and more meaningful action. You stop wasting time restarting the same thing over and over, and instead you move forward. Progress accelerates, momentum builds, life opens up, your relationships begin to shift as well. People notice consistency. They notice when you say you'll do something, and then you actually do it. Trust grows, respect deepens, opportunities start to come to you not because you're lucky, but because you're reliable. People want to work with those who finish. People want to be around those who are disciplined, focused, and strong enough to keep their word. When you finish your goals, you don't have to talk about your work ethic. It speaks for itself. It becomes visible in your results, in your habits, in your energy. And perhaps most importantly, finishing changes the way you deal with failure. You stop fearing it. You stop avoiding hard things because you've built a history of perseverance. You've learned that success isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, adjusting, and finishing anyway. You don't crumble under pressure anymore. You don't get paralyzed by setbacks because you know how to stay in the fight until the job is done. You've built emotional endurance. You've built mental stamina. And that inner strength starts showing up everywhere. When you become someone who finishes, your goals stop being wishful thinking and start becoming plans. Your dreams stop being distant and start feeling within reach. Life becomes less about what you hope will happen and more about what you're determined to make happen. That mindset is magnetic. That discipline draws people to you. That energy opens doors that talent alone never could. Finishing isn't just an act, it's a signal. It tells the world who you are. It sets the tone for your future, and once that standard is locked in, you carry it into everything. Your career, your health, your relationships, your character. You become someone who doesn't need reminders or motivation to move. You move because that's who you are, and that identity, that standard, that's what separates those who talk from those who transform. That's what sets champions apart. The truth is simple but powerful. The real difference between those who dream and those who achieve is the decision to finish. Not to start strong and fade, not to wait for perfect conditions, not to depend on applause, but to commit fully, grind silently, and finish completely. Finishing your goals is not just about success, it's about self-respect. It's about building a life that reflects your discipline, your focus, and your refusal to quit. The secret power lies not in talent or luck, but in consistency, in execution, and in the relentless mindset that says, I will not stop until it's done. That's how legacies are built. That's how average is destroyed, and that's how greatness is born. Finish what you start, because the world rewards finishers, not starters.